Okay. All right. We're still not recording. Hold on, just give a sec here. I don't know why some days it like takes 2 seconds for it to start recording, and other days it takes, I don't know. Okay, I'll throw the link in the chat. And I'll just wait for the recording to start. There we go. Okay. All right. Where's my mouse arrow? There we go. Here's the chat. All right. So I'm just going to show you a little trick here. And I did explain this last day, I think, but I'll just explain it again. If you want to give something to students and you want them to each have their own individual copy of something, here's how you can do that. Is you can go to the share button, and of course you need to just make sure that you share it so that whichever way it is, whether it's restricted, well, it can't be restricted, you can't share it, but whether it's, you know, your school division or your organization or anyone with the link. So in this case, it really doesn't matter. Anyone with the link, it can be, so we'll choose that one, a viewer. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we'll copy that link. And just as I'll just throw this here in the speaker's notes down here. I'm just going to paste this. And so you all know that you get these big gobbledygook, URLs when you from a Google Doc. But what I'm most interested in is the stuff that's after this last slash mark here, this little slashy, where it says edit USP equals sharing. What we actually want to do is get rid of that, and we want to go copy. And then when I send you that URL, and I'll put that in the chat right now. Okay. When you click that URL, you'll get a window saying, please make a copy of this document. So go ahead and do that. Okay. And I'm just going to make that smaller like so. I'll just give everybody a second. Somebody give me like a yes or whatever in the chat to make sure that the copy worked. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Kennedy. Okay, so there we go. Nice little beach scene, which is kind of, you look out your front window, and it might be a nice place to be today. But so let's go to slide number 2. Change the theme of this presentation and add orange text to this slide. So I'm just going to delete that for 1 second. Okay, so the themes are controlled. Themes are controlled by the same thing. So I have an Apple mouse, and the Apple mouse is probably the worst thing to try to work in a slideshow with, because just basically when you touch the mouse, it makes you move slides. So one of the things to remember about slideshows, and really actually a lot of software, is that right-clicking your mouse. Oh, for crying out loud! Just 1 sec here. Okay, I'm gonna freak out here. Hold on for a second. Do I have batteries in this? Nuts. I don't. Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay, right click. There we go. Right clicking. It usually gives you lots of options. So if you're ever doubting, like, I'm not sure how to do this, don't ever hesitate just to right click. But so you can see here, you can change the theme. And then of course, like backgrounds up here is the theme button as well. And both do the exact same thing. They'll pop up this side panel, and it gives you, I don't know, some choices. What one will we choose here? I'm going to choose this one. Okay, so if you choose a theme, what's going to happen is it applies that theme to the overall look. You can also import a theme, right? So there's so if you've got other themes available, you can do that. Or the other thing that you can do is you can go on the web and you can just type in, PowerPoint or slideshow templates, and you can get some really cool ones as well. And then you can just use those, and you don't even actually have to import them. Okay. I want to choose, actually, let me choose this one. There we go. Okay. So again, though, the other thing you have to be careful of is when you're choosing a theme is that, and now this one, of course, you usually do choosing a theme before you start doing all the text boxes and things like that. But of course, you need to make sure that things are available for, people to see on your slides. And of course, again, you got to be mindful of contrast and that kind of stuff. Okay. So, and then the next thing is the orange text on this slide. I'm just going to do it this way, is that you can, type your text or have your text available. And then all you need to do to change to orange is go to the A. You all know that. So we can change, any shade of orange you want. Okay, so that's how you do that. Number 3. That was a really bad. Create a Venn diagram. And does anybody know how to do this one? There's 2 parts. The Venn diagram, and we don't have to worry about putting in stuff about the Pacific Oceans and Atlantics, but how do we do a Venn diagram? And where do you where do you find the Explore tool? Felicity, that's exactly what happens. Yes, it does change those slides. So, which is actually one of the reasons I kind of don't use themes in even my own slideshows. I typically stay away from them. There is a way to change that and control that, but that's kind of more of an advanced thing. So let's not worry about that today. But you can, when you have a theme, you can actually decide sort of what kind of theme you want, because you can see this, it applied this one here as well, right? And you may or may not want that. So, but for today's purposes, don't worry about it. We'll just click a theme and change it and use whatever you want. Does anybody want to tackle the Venn diagram? Nobody wants to? Okay, let me do it for you then. So Venn diagram, of course, is, 2 circles that are overlapping, right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to go to the shape tool. Of course, you can also go to the insert menu and go insert a shape, and then, choose this one's called the oval. Okay. And I'll do that. It doesn't matter whether you go to the menu or to the toolbar, you get the same thing. We get a little plus sign. Now, I don't want an oval. Now I can eyeball what I think looks pretty close to a full circle. Is there? I'm sorry, I'm still suffering a little bit here from this flu or cold or whatever I've got. Does anybody know how you draw a perfect circle and not have to eyeball it? Where you can, doesn't matter how jittery or shaky you are, you can get a perfect circle every time. Does anybody know how to do that? Yep, thanks. So yeah, if I hold the shift key down, then it doesn't matter what I do, which way I go, I always get a perfect circle. So I'm gonna do that, and it gives me this gray inside, which is good, bad, or other. It doesn't matter. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that, and then if I want to change the color of this, then I can go to the paint can and I can change the inside color. Okay, and maybe I'll just use I don't know, that color of pink. Okay, now how can I get another circle that's exactly the same as this one without using copy or paste? Does anybody know that one? Okay, so this is a little trick that you can remember for slideshows and for Google Drawings. And by the way, all these sort of skills that we're learning here on a Google slide is basically almost identical to all the skills that you need to know in Google Drawing. Okay, so without using copy and paste, then how do you get a copy of that? Well, on your keyboard, or one of the commands that you can use is Command or Control D. Now you got to make sure that your shape is selected. And if I go Command D, what that is duplicate. Okay. And then of course I can make it look, like a Venn diagram. Okay. Now, oops. And on this one though, how am I going to get that center middle piece overlapping? Does anybody can anybody think of a way to do that? Control D. Yeah, D. Well, I got to work with my transparency. So, whoopsie. I think it is, hold on here, right here. Where is it? I can't remember. A sec here. Hold on for 1 sec. I don't do this very often because I don't do slideshows. How do I do this again? Is it under my paint can? Somebody help me out. Oh, right here. Transparent. No. Shift. Is it under gradient? Let's try gradient. I might not be able to do this. I can't see if I can remember. No, I can't remember. Doesn't matter. So another option then is to do in the paint bucket at the very bottom, the transparent button. Okay, if I click that, yeah, but that makes it completely like blank. If you wanted a color, there's another trick. Darn it, I can't remember how to do this now. I'm having a brain fart. Just one sec here. It's actually a really cool thing, but I can't remember how to do it. I can't remember. Sorry. It's too early in the morning for me to remember that. Anyways, there we go. We can have a plain one where we have overlapping. Now, the second part of that is the explore tool. So where is the explore tool? Bottom right hand corner. Yes, most people actually miss that one. Is down here, there's an explore button. You can also go up to, is it tools? Yeah, and go explore there under the menus. But and so I think almost all Google products have this explore button in the bottom. And then if you were just to type in, I don't know, just say oceans. And then what happens is it gives you results from the web. Gives you images. And then, of course, if you were doing, I don't know, research on the oceans or whatever, you can just access it from there. So it's kind of a quicker step to get information than opening up a new tab and doing a Google search. But it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But that's the Explore tool. So it can give you some interesting information. In Google Sheets, the Explore little star gives you some other interesting things that you can do in Google Sheets as well. All right, number four. Let me just move that around again here for one sec. There we go. There you go. Make the slide black and insert a picture of any location in the world that's on your travel bucket list. Well, we already know how to make this slide black, right? We can right-click it to get color that is transferred to create your own color under the bucket. Hey, let's try that second. All right. Custom color, let's go. Oh, right, it's right here. Duh, right, now I remember. Thank you. All right, let's go with kind of pinkish color. And then you can set your transparency to be a little bit less. And then you can do this one as well, the same way. And we'll go that one. And then what happens is you get this darker color in the middle. Thank you, Danielle. Okay, so that's how you do that. So one more time, click on your object, go to the paint bucket. You got to choose a custom color. And then whatever color you choose, right? You can use your little sliders to choose whatever colors you want. And then you can play around with the transparency slider. And then it'll give you that thing. Excellent. Thank you, Danielle. All right. To make the slide black, right? We know how to do that. Right click, change background, and choose a black color. Okay. Before I do that, one of the things I would say not to do would be this. Don't go and grab the rectangle tool and drag a rectangle like this over it and then paint it black. That's kind of the wrong way to do that. Okay, so let's not do that. The best way to do that, if you want it to be like a black background, then is to literally just go change background, choose black as your color, say done. And that, because of the theme, that really did not do anything. So, but that's how you do it. And then of course, insert a picture, you go to insert menu, you go image, and you can go upload from your computer or search the web. Again, if we were to do that and just type in, color and go insert, and then you can, add your own picture in there. Okay, and please use the red lines that are available to help center images and things like that. So anyways, that's one way. This does not actually look like Hawaii, but that's okay. All right, number 5. Use the big number layout to tell me what percentage of your time you spent last. Okay, so big number layout, this one sometimes bamboozles people too, but there's a layout button right here. And all you got to do is click the drop down menu, choose big number layout, and then, I don't know, 100%, whatever. I've never used this. So don't worry about it. But anyways, that's where you can change kind of what the layout looks like. And also, who said that before about the template? I don't know, kind of screwing up the overall look. You can choose an overall. You can change a slide by going to layout. So these are all, when we chose that theme, this is all of the different kinds of slides that you can get using that theme. Okay, so if we did go, you know, and you chose a theme and you didn't like, let's say, I don't know, the original look, you can go under layout to change it. Okay, so that's one way to sort of play around with it. But again, we chose big number layout. Okay, the next one down is, and let me just move this around a little bit, was describe a favorite summer experience in Quattrocento font and build a transition into the slide. Okay, so Quattrocento font obviously then would be under the font menu. Let's make a text box first using the text box tool, and we'll just do that. And I'll just put in hiking here like that. Oops, well, got to spell it correctly, I guess. Hiking, and then to use a Quattrocento font, first of all, I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger so we can all see it. There we go. Is we can go into the font menu, and what, of course, what you'd need to do is scroll down to see if you've got it installed. Now, I have it installed because I've done this with the other classes as well. But if you don't have a font that you know, matches something that you need to find, you can always go under more fonts, and you can, and this is a lifetime stealer, is you can, there's all kinds of fonts that you can scroll through. You can sort them by different languages. You can do ones that are in handwriting. So anyways, if you want to waste, you know, a couple hours of your life, you can come here and choose a font. Of course, if it was, you knew what font you wanted and it was like Quattro, oh, there it is. And you can just actually search it too, right? But you can see there's lots of different kinds of fonts. But because I've got it installed, I can highlight it and just go down to Quattrocento, wherever that is. There we, where is it? Oh my goodness, there we go. And there it is there. Okay, so that's how you find it. Build a transition into the slide. I am actually not going to do this because in your flipped classroom slideshow assignment that I'm going to give you, there are no you're not allowed to have transitions or animations. So there's actually no point on doing this. But if you are interested in building in transitions and stuff like that, you can find that under, there's the animate button, and there is slide transitions and animations. Okay, and you can play around with that. I also don't, when I'm doing slideshows with kids, I also, the rule for them is no transitions and no animations, or I limit it to, you can have a transition and an animation on your first slide, or, you know, I can limit it because what happens is kids will spend all of their time doing fancy, funky things, and they won't get actually any work done. Okay, but they'll have maybe 2 or 3 slides that are just absolutely amazing transitions and whatever other magical things they can figure out to do under the animations button, but they'll get no really work or content done. So that's kind of why I say no transitions and no animations, because generally speaking, they don't really add a lot to the overall slideshow anyways. Okay, so so there we go. We got a font and we're not doing transitions. All right, next slide. And we'll just move that over again. All right, use this slide to create a collage of tilted and overlapping images of your favorite things. Okay, so same idea. If we need images, you can go insert an image, and you can go search the web from your drive, from your photos, from your whatever, you know, pretty much anywhere that you can grab a photo off. I'll just go search the web, and we might just use beaches again. Just do that. Oopsie. Just do that. Go insert. All right, I'm just going to make that a little bit smaller. Like so, I'm just going to put 3 images on there. And so, actually, you know what? I'm just going to duplicate the same one. Okay, so it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to move them around. So there's a couple of things that you want, that you want to be able to do. So these are, oh, crying out loud, these are all overlapping images. Now, question is, how do I get this one here to be on top. So this, it's covered a little bit by the other images. Does anybody know how I do that? Shift up. What does that mean? Like, hold on the shift key and use the up arrow? Okay, let me click on the image, go shift up. That just moves it upwards. Remember, that's okay. Nice try though, Oksana. Remember, when in doubt, right click. Okay, so if I right click on this image, if I can get it to stay on the slide, there is, when I have the image clicked, there's one of the menu options is order. And under order, you can bring things to the front, send things to the back, and use these other things. Now, Oksana, you are close. Look, if you look at that, it is Command and up arrow, not shift. So you're pretty close. Let's try that. Command and up arrow. There you go. And command and down arrow moves it backwards. You know what, Oksana, I didn't actually know that. So there you go. Okay. And then, of course, using it via the menus, I could go order and bring to front and bring that in front. So that's how you can do that and overlap things. And then, does anybody know how I can like tilt it or rotate it? How do I do that? No one knows? Okay, well, if you select an image, double click the circle at the top of the box. All right, so if I click an image, Felicity, somebody yesterday had a really cute thing. The little antenna at the top here. And if you click and hold on the little antenna, you can rotate any image that you want if you wanted to do that. Okay, so that's how you bring things forward and backwards, and that is how you can tilt an image or anything, any image that you want. Okay, so there's that one. And then this one is making a bucket list and adding bullets. Okay, so, and then again, they want you to animate it so that the bullets fly in one at a time. We're not going to worry about that. But if I were to make a bucket list, I don't know, of 5 favorite movies, a bulleted list, sorry, not a bucket list, I have no idea. That's a tough one, right? But I'm just going to make a bulleted list like this. Okay, so when you do that, to make a bulleted list, I think you all know this, right? Is you have your text selected and you just choose the bullet menu up here. So there it is, the text is selected. I can choose any kind of bullet that I want here. That they give us 6 choices. We can use little check boxes if you wanted. And oopsie. And that's the choice that I use on a lot of times on our checklists and stuff for assignments, is I use that one. Now, there is a way also, let me just come in here. And I just want to get rid of this one here. All right. So there's also another way. I know how to do this on a Mac. I don't know how to do it on any of the computers. But if you don't, so the thing is that if you choose any of these, whether it be a bulleted list or a numbered list, Google assumes that you want to indent and have it your bulleted list look like this. That usually makes me crazy because it usually is more hassle fiddling around with the ruler and the tabs and stuff. And so what I do when I want a bulleted list, all I do is this on a Mac. Now, again, I don't know if you know on a Chromebook or anybody knows on a PC, please share. But if you go option 8, so the option key, hold it down and just type in the number 8, it gives you a bullet. And then you can put your own thing in there. And that's basically how I always make my bulleted lists. And then that way it's not applying any formatting like it does up here. And I can control if I want a space there, I can put my own space in myself. And so I control the formatting and not let the software control the formatting. Okay. Does anybody know a PC or a Chromebook way to do that? No. One option would be on a Chromebook. Control Shift 8 on a PC. Okay, there you go. Control Shift and 8. On a Chromebook, it might be the same on a Chromebook. I don't have my Chromebook available right now to do that. But one other option to do, if you wanted, I don't know, some funky bullet, obviously you could add, like I always like to add emojis and things. You could add an emoji, or remember, we can go to the insert menu and we can go special characters, right? And if you were to type in bullet, it gives you some different options. So maybe you want one like this, like a radio button. And so then you could choose that one. And it gives you a bullet like that. And then again, like I said, you have way more control over the formatting than you do by using the tools up here. Okay, so different ways, a few different ways to add some bullets if you want. Now, in a few seconds, we're going to talk about some rules about slideshows and how many bullets and all that kind of jazz you're allowed to have on a slide. But we'll do that in a couple of minutes. Okay. All right. Make a bulleted list of your 5 tablet moves. So, okay, we're good there. We're good. Okay. Okay, use word art. All right, so word art, I'm going to say this officially, and it's being recorded because I normally don't say anything positive about Microsoft stuff, but I have to admit and say that I think that as far as word art goes, Microsoft Word or Microsoft PowerPoint, hands down, is the way better than Google Slides. But there still is a way to add word art into Google Slides. And that way is to go to insert and actually say choose word art. What it does is right at the very top here, it gives you a little box to say, okay, well, what do you want to make word art? And I'm just going to go Brad. I don't know. Let's see. Brad was very original, I know, here. Okay. And then just hit enter. And oopsie, and it puts that on your slide. Okay. It will I can't think of any time it doesn't ever come up gray or looking like this. So if you want to change the color and the style of it, you need to select it. And then of course you can go to the paint bucket and choose your own colors. Let's use that funky pink color we used from before. And if you want the black line to be a different color, you could go to the line tool and say, you know what, I want it to be lime green, and I want that line to be thicker, and I want the font to be, I don't know, how about Lifesavers? And you can monkey around with that way. So if you did want to add word art, go ahead. But again, I think word art, in all honesty, is a bit of a time waster. I don't know. I don't think it, generally speaking, it doesn't really add anything to your overall presentation. Because again, here in a few seconds, we're going to talk about good slideshows and things like that. And you're the show, not this fancy Brad was here or whatever other kind of title you could dream up in word art. That's not the main event. You're the main event, and what's behind you on the slideshow is just to support what you're saying or doing and that kind of stuff. So don't spend a lot of time worrying about word art, but that's how you do it. That's your option there. And then this last slide that we'll do, we won't do the very last one with the graph on it, but we'll do this one. Here is insert a picture of yourself and then add a thought bubble. Oopsie. And so let's do that. Okay, so I actually can add a picture. I think I can add a picture, upload from my computer. I'll use the same one that I use for all my YouTube videos. So there's a picture of myself, and then adding a thought bubble. So a thought bubble is an object or a shape. So we can go to the object or the shape menu here, and we can code what they call callouts, and then we could use these kind of thought bubbles. If I use this one that's like a cloud, and I click that, it gives me an opportunity to use the plus sign and click, hold, and drag. Okay. And then the one thing that my folks from yesterday couldn't figure out, well, word art is fun. I agree, Tyler. But one thing my students couldn't figure out yesterday is if I'm supposed to be thinking this or saying this, then how do I get this thing so that it's actually coming out of my head or out of my mouth? How do I get that? Like you see in a cartoon. Does anybody know how to do that? Nobody? So on some of the objects that you choose, you're going to see, and this is really hard to see, there's a little yellow, like a little yellow triangle or a little yellow handle there. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to bring those thought bubbles, to a person's mouth or a person's head or something like that. If this is to my mouth, One of the things, of course, first thing I might want to do is change that with the paint bucket to a different color. Let's use yellow because it'll be easy to see, right? So then, it's coming from either I'm either saying it, oopsie, or I'm either that or I'm, thinking it kind of idea. So you can add that. It's kind of a cute little feature. Okay. All right. And then the last one here, we don't have to worry about that because it's a little bit more of an advanced feature as well. Okay. Does anybody want me to show you any of those things again? No, everybody's got it? Okay. And so just a little, it's, really it boils down to like a little bit of a tutorial on how to use some of the functions. So I think we're going to stop then if no one's got questions. All right. So, and if you want, you keep that Google Slideshow scavenger hunt. You might want to use it with your own students somewhere down the road. Okay. Okay. While we're talking about slideshows and presentations, I'm going to do this slideshow, and this is probably the only one you'll have to see from me in this class, is presentation of Woosah. I have delivered this slideshow to different groups around the college, and this is just stuff taken from really like the presentation experts. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually present it as a slideshow, and so that you can see it. And so you can see what I've got going on here. And I'm just going to advance using my up and down arrow keys. So a question to ponder is, what's the best slideshow presentation you've ever sat through? And some of you might answer it by saying, actually, I've never sat through a good slideshow, Brad. Right. And I can tell you that in all of my years of sitting through slideshows at professional development and different conferences and stuff, I've actually really can only think of one slideshow that I would say was amazing. And probably more so because the person who was presenting it was amazing, and the slideshow just helped elaborate and accentuate what he was talking about. Okay, and that was by a guy named Robert Ballard, Dr. Robert Ballard. If you're familiar with him, you may or may not be, but he's the guy who discovered the Titanic. Okay, and after how many years it was at the bottom of the ocean, he's the guy who found it. So his whole slideshow was about all these cool things that they do underwater with submarines and all the wrecks and things that they found in the past. So it was really, really interesting. So anyways, best slideshow you've ever sat through? Maybe never, because you know why? Because most people make the slideshow the main event instead of you being the main event. And so what I want to do is I want to try to work through this slideshow and give you some tips and tricks about how to make your slideshows better for teaching, whether it be in front of kids in a K-12 classroom, or it's in one of your classes or one of your courses that you're taking in your BEd degree that you have to do a presentation in front of the class. So I want to show you how to make better slideshows. Okay, so the next thing is this is a YouTube video, and it's from 2018, but Apple has these big main events lots of times, but it doesn't matter the video, what's happening in the video. So I'm just going to play the video for a second.
Really brings them to life.
And if it's sluggish or whatever, don't worry about it. I know that sometimes playing a video on my end, then giving it to you, it doesn't really work very well. But what I want you to do is I just want you to pay attention to the slideshow and what's going on. So obviously this guy right here is talking, and he's talking obviously about the Apple Watch, but and this is a slideshow, right? And Apple, if you're an Apple user, Apple's slideshow software is called Keynote. Okay, so just watch what's going on.
And you can customize it with the things you care about. Now, you can add loved ones to your watch face and simply tap to connect with them. I'm going to move it forward. Now, they detect electrical impulses from the heartbeat. They route them to the...
All right, enough. Question. How much text are on his slides? Rhetorical question. The answer is there is none, Brad, right? That's because he's actually doing a slideshow appropriately. No text, right? And he is the show. And he's talking about how the wonders of an Apple Watch, and the image is supporting what he's saying. So that's what I want you to think about, is when you're using images or text, and we can use text in a very minimal way, but when we do, it is to support you, because you're the show actually, is to support you in, about in what you're talking about, or what type of information you're trying to get across to people. If we advance to the next slideshow, some of you might recognize Ken Robinson, who just recently, not that distant, maybe a year or two ago, has passed away now. But I want you to watch his TED Talk. And we're not going to watch the whole thing because it's way longer than we want. But let's just watch him for a sec.
This was from.
So he's talking about Shakespeare.
Mistakes. And we're now running national education systems where mistakes are the worst thing you can make. And the result is that we are educating people out of their creative capacities. Picasso once said this. He said that all children are born artists. The problem is to remain an artist as we grow up. I believe this passionately, that we don't grow into creativity.
Hey, Oksana, did you like that little statement about art? Hey, okay, let's move forward a little bit.
If you want real evidence of out-of-body experiences, by the way.
Okay, again, my other rhetorical question is this, is what do you think of a slideshow? And of course, your answer is to go, duh, Brad, there is no slideshow. Exactly, right? He's the show, right? So one of the things that I want you to think about when you're thinking about doing slideshows for whatever purpose is, again, that you're the show. And really what a slideshow helps you do is tell your story, right? And that, I mean, Ken Robinson was a great storyteller, right? I mean, this TED Talk is, I think, the most viewed TED Talk in TED history, right? And if you've never seen it, you should really watch it because he really hits the nail on the head about what schools are doing wrong in educating kids, okay? The other thing that I want you to notice, and so remember I told you that Apple's slideshow software is called Keynote. He's the keynote speaker. So the person who's like the headliner at a conference is called the keynote speaker. And any keynote speaker, even the guy who's got the most views of a TED Talk in history, guess how much time he gets to present his information? Does anybody want to throw that out there for the world as a guess? Well, let's think about brain-based lesson plans and brain-based learning. Oops, where's my slide here? He gets 20 minutes. And so if you go and think back to our rules about chunk and choose and things like that, he gets 20 minutes. And again, why? Because again, most adults have an attention span of about 20 minutes. If you're not a headliner or a keynoter like he is, you actually get even less time. So so just sort of think about that, is that, somebody who's as famous as this guy was, he gets 20 minutes to get his message across. So an interesting little thought there. All right. So if you want to make a big impact, use big pictures. So I'm going to show you a series of pictures now. And some of them are kind of a couple of them might be a little bit disturbing, but you can't tell me they're not impactful. Okay. So the first one, say, first of all, how many images on a slide? Okay, let's do this first. We got this. So I'm doing a presentation on Martin Luther King, and I don't know, pick any classroom in the world that I'm doing this for a mark, right? What do you think is better? This slide with all these images, which really all it says to me is I just needed to fill a bunch of space up so I didn't, there wasn't just, a bunch of white on the screen, or is this more impactful? Right? I personally think this one is way more impactful than that, right? This sends a bigger message around Martin Luther King and what he tried to do, okay? So there you go. You want a big impact? Use a big picture. Don't use a bunch of little pictures, right? Use one that fills the whole thing. And again, if you can, add it as a background. So that's the background. Now, the show is you talking about what's going on here and him delivering this speech, right? Okay. Here's another one. Okay, this is a picture from the Vietnam War of this was in Life magazine or Time, one of the two, I can't remember now, of an actual execution Okay. This one is another one from the Vietnam War, a very, very famous picture of this girl running away after her village got bombed by the Americans. Okay. This one, we're all familiar with this picture, right? The lunar landing and people being on the moon. Again, whether you think it's a conspiracy and they didn't actually go there, that's a whole different, thing to talk about, right? This one, another famous picture from, I think, Life magazine at the end of World War II in Times Square. Okay, this one actually has a little bit of controversy around it as well. How about this, right? Or this one? Or that one? How about this? This one actually makes you think, I think, a little bit of what's going on. What's this guy sitting right in the middle of the aisle and he's praying, right? What's going on there, right? Okay. So along with our 10, 20, 30 rule, what I propose that you do is you follow that rule in your slideshows too. So one of the rules that we're going to find out here, I'm just going to move onto my notes for 1 sec. I'm just going to make a new page. Okay, and I'm just going to put this down here, is that let's just kind of go, let's call this slideshow rules. There's going to be some other rules that we're going to talk about in a bit, but we'll just call this slideshow rules. Is that after, and this is literally almost identical to our brain lesson plan. So after 10 slides or 20 minutes, comma, you need to, can I sneak need in there? Sure we can. You need to do an activity. Okay. And whether that is just, turn to your partner and chat at them for a minute, or you get them off their seats and you make them move around, that again is totally up to you, just like it is in the brain lesson plan. Okay. So, and how do I keep myself honest that way can you keep yourself honest when you're doing a slideshow? Is you can do exactly what I did there and just throw a slide on there that says activity. Okay. And then when you get there, you have an activity for your audience to do. Okay. All right. So there's some other rules. Okay. No transitions. We already talked about that. As a matter of fact, in the flipped classroom slideshow checklist, it actually says in there, if you add transitions and animations, you're going to get heavily penalized. Okay, so no transitions, no animations, please. Okay, and I'll show you why. Because think of me, I have to mark over 100 of these. And if I have to sit through that on every one of your slides, I'm going to be crazier than I already am. So, and so that's why when I deal with kids in K to 12, or I deal with folks in my classes, my rule is no animations. Let me just go back for a sec. That adds absolutely nothing to my slideshow other than making your audience dizzy, I don't know, or something, right? So, right? No, we don't need that. What does that add? That adds nothing, right? I can just have that on the top of my screen sitting right there to talk about it, right? And again, if from a marking standpoint, I got to wait for all of that to happen on your slide. So before I can go to the next one, like I said, it's going to make me crazier than I already am. So no slideshows, no transmission or transitions, because again, and no sounds unless it actually does add something to your slideshow. Okay, if it's like an audio file of somebody talking or somebody reading a poem or something like that, you might want to be able to use that. Or it's a sound of an animal or some scientific sound or something, you might use that. But every time I click my mouse button, I shouldn't hear a bird chirping or something like that. Okay, all right. So we already talked a little bit about the 20 and 7 rule in the notes, right? So here, that 20 and 7 rule is exactly the same. After 10 slides or 20 minutes, you need to do an activity. So, I just want to, yes, okay. And so some of you might be thinking then, okay, well, Brad, if I don't have text on my slide, then how do I remember what I want to talk about? Well, that's where do I have that? that's where speaker's notes come in, right? You can add speaker's notes to your slide. You can print them out. You can use a device to have your slideshow running as well up there, and you can have your notes and your little safety net so that you can remember about everything that you want to talk about on that slide in your hand. But you don't need all of this information on the actual slide, right? As a matter of fact, I think if I were to put this all up there in bullet points, it takes away from my overall what I'm trying to accomplish. And the other thing that you'll notice is I'm not using really any backgrounds in this slideshow. So, because again, I'm not sure that it would add. You might be able to get away with using a light colored background, but again, I don't think having a background really would make this slideshow better. Okay, so we know the 27 rule here's the 10, 20, 30 rule. So in your notes, I want you to write down 10, 20, 30. Okay, so in my notes, I want you to write that down as a rule. There's a 10, 20, 30 rule, and we know already part of it. Okay, and part of it's like this, is no more than 10 slides. Okay, and so if you want to break that rule, that's okay. But then after every 10th slide or after 20 minutes, you need an activity slide. Okay, so you can break that rule. There's more slides than 10 in this slideshow. Okay, but we can break those rules a little bit. Okay, and then the last part of that is if you're going to put text on your slide, 30-point minimum. Okay, and why 30 point? Well, guess what? It then affects how much actual text you can put on the slide, right? Because nobody wants a slide that just is just like a paragraph of text and then you read it. Because you know what? Everyone in your audience can read, right? So you don't need to read it for them. You're not sitting with grade 1s and reading them a storybook, right? That's why we don't want to have text on there, because nobody wants that. And I'm sure you have all sat through slideshows that's the whole slide is just a bunch of text with bullet points, and then somebody reads it to you, right? Poor slideshow presentation, skill. Don't do that. Okay. So under our rules, then, right, we have no more than 10 slides. And of course, if you want to put a little asterisk beside that, just to remind yourself that we can sort of break that rule, right? No more than 20 minutes, no more than 20 minutes. And a 30-point font, 30-point font minimum. Okay, and I'll show you in the next slides here how we sort of apply another rule to help ensure that as well. Okay, so if I go here, okay, so 10, 20, 30, that's a 10, 20, 30 rule. All right, and of course, that 10 minutes does fluctuate, right? Just like in our brain lesson plan, based on your grade and your age and all that kind of jazz. So again, from that 10 minutes, or 10 things, 20 minutes rule, you need to sort of adjust based on the age of your kids. Okay, so we all know that. All right, so there you go. There's another 10 slides we've just gone through. All right, so there's also a bullet rule. Okay, so if you want to use bullet points on your slide or something like a bullet point, we've got some rules. So in our notes, again, I think I'll just throw it over here in this kind of little corner here. Okay, bullet points. Okay, and let's just take a peek here for a second. Is no more than 3 bullets on any given page. So no more, so I'm just like no more than 3 bullets. Okay, and then there's like a part 2 to this. If you're going to put bullets on your page, because for whatever reason you decide that you need to have that text on there. Okay, this is just a really funny slideshow, but we won't do that. And I don't know where that slide went. The second rule is no more than 5 words per bullet. Okay, so if we're talking about bullet point rules, no more than 3 bullets on any given slide, and no more than 5 words per bullet. So then in total, I guess you're allowed to have 15 words on a slide. Okay, and again, I would discourage you maybe from even using that many. Okay, again, if you got stuff to say, then put that down in the speaker's notes and go from there. Because as a matter of fact, if in this slideshow that you're making for me about flipped classrooms, if you have heavy slides that or text that have heavy amount of text on it, again, you're going to get deducted marks. Okay, but we'll go through the checklist when we're actually doing that exercise. Okay, so there's your bullet point rule. All right. Okay, so what about fonts? Okay, so what about them? Well, as we showed when we were doing the scavenger hunt, there are hundreds, if not thousands, if not even more than that, fonts available for you to use in Google Slides, and they're easy to get to and they're easy to use. But what we need to think about again is your audience, right? How easy is it to read? And also think about, in some instances, your audience may be far away, right? So how easy is it to read? And again, when we go with the 30-point minimum, that also helps people who are farther away be able to read your slides. If you have a whole slide with 12-point text on there, if someone's sitting farther away, like at the back of the classroom or in a bigger area, they're not going to be able to read what's on your slide. And again, you shouldn't even have that much text on your slide. So be kind with your fonts. Use fonts that are easy to read, and again, are a minimum of a 30-point font. Okay, and you can go bigger if you want than that, than 30 points. But be kind to your audience. Stay away from curly fonts like this. This one's hard to read because all the letters are kind of jammed together. This one's much better because it's easier to read. So just be mindful of what font you're going to use. Okay. What about colors? We've talked lots about colors and complementary colors, right? So again, thinking about light on dark, dark on light, and what that contrast of what you're trying to achieve on your overall slide. Okay. And then of course, complementary colors, we know that there's this menu, whether we're using text or the paint bucket, or we're drawing a colored line. Oopsie, we're drawing a colored line around our stuff. We get this same menu. And of course, just to refresh your memory, complementary colors are anything in any given row. All of these colors are complementary to one another, or in any given column with the same shade of whatever color that is. Okay. There are lots of websites, and when we start Google Drawings, I'll talk more about this. There's lots of websites that if you're like, what color should I use for this presentation? There's lots of colors that you can use. I'll just show you one of my favorites. This is my, I think this is one's done by Google, I think. But it's called Picular. And, how about, I'll just type in the word forest. And if you hit enter, it'll give you a palette of colors of, I don't know, things that are, potential colors in a forest. Okay. I will just give you that. I'll put that in the chat for you. It's one of my favorite websites to grab colors off of. Okay. So, and then, like here, if you want to type in, let's say Hawaii. I got Hawaii on my mind, right? Gives you, some colors. And if you don't like those colors, then just type in a different word. But it's kind of a neat one when we're talking about, different palettes of colors. Okay. And some of you understand that. I mean, that's a basic grade 1, a grade 1 curriculum topic is colors like that, right? And what colors on the color wheel are opposite each other and that kind of stuff. Okay. All right. All right. Stop. Okay. I'm going to stop. Okay. What about contrast? We already talked about it. That's horrible, right? right? What about contrast? Which one's better? Easy to determine which one's better, right? And even if you're going to use that pink, which I don't advise you use that color pink as a background, at least be kind and use like a white or some other font, right? Okay. No black backgrounds, especially if you're printing your slideshow. So a few minutes ago I said no text on your slides. And put it in your speaker's notes. So again, if you're going to print those out so you have them in hand, you don't want black or a lot of color backgrounds, because you're going to end up using a lot of toner, a lot of your ink from your inkjet printer. So, and again, if we're talking about text, look at this slide. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 words on there. That's manageable. You could get away with that. And that's why we have that 15-word rule. And if we look at the size of the font on there, that's a 48-point font. I could have even gone larger than that. Okay. All right. Again, colors, no, right? This color, no, right? That color, absolutely not, right? Okay. Now, what about tools? Now, remember, this technology, slideshow technology, is just a tool, right? Some people will use this tool to deliver a lesson. Some people won't. Right. So again, it's all about your personal preferences and your values, your beliefs, and really your overall, what's the overall outcome that you're trying to achieve, and then what tool will get you there in the best way, right? And maybe it is a slideshow. Okay, in this case, it is a slideshow, right? So what I want you to think about is what tools are you going to use? And one of the things that I can't remember if we've talked about this before, but let's see, just in our notes, I just want to make sure that I make this point. And I'll just do this on a new slide. I'm just going to tell you, you don't have to draw this. This is just sort of something that I'll show you. So in my master's degree, my big area of study within ed technology was professional development. And so really, here's how this works. The steeper the learning curve for the teacher. So you give them a new smartboard or something like that in their classroom, or you give them a new piece of software to use to do gradebook or something like that. The steeper the learning curve, there's kind of an inverse curve that occurs, that the steeper this curve, the less likely they are to adopt it, right? So, or the other one that I use is the thicker the manual, the less likely people are to actually do it. So teachers don't have time. Right. I mean, if you go to chapters and you go into their, computer or whatever section, and you pick out a book on Photoshop, it's this thick, right? No teacher unless that's what they're teaching in like digital arts or whatever, no teacher is going to read a book that thick. No one's got time to do that. Not even on your summer vacation. You don't want to do that, right? So again, the thicker the book or the steeper the learning curve, the less likely people are going to actually use that technology at all, or use it appropriately. Okay, so that was kind of the demise of smartboards in this province, right? Many years ago, Smart Technologies, the company, basically put smartboards in every classroom in Alberta. And so what happened is two things. One is teachers were never really ever trained to how to use a smartboard properly. And then the second thing that happened is Smart got greedy, and their software for their smartboards was awesome software. And then they started charging a lot of money for it. And so that now you see in classrooms around Alberta, not many of them have smartboards anymore. Or if they do, smartboards are definitely on their way out. And big, huge, screen TVs is the new trend. So just remember that for yourself, whether you're the teacher on the learning end, or you might be the teacher on the technology person on, teaching other staff members, that, the more complicated it is, the less likely they are just to say, this is not for me. Okay. So we'll just remember that. And so then when we're talking about tools, a couple tools that I think are necessary anytime that you're not presenting in your own environment. And that what I mean, like in your own classroom, or where how the tech works. Because this happens many times. There's sort of at least 2 or 3 common things that will happen if you go, let's say I was going to go to Edmonton and present in some school up in Edmonton. Here's some things that typically happen is I have a Mac. Many places aren't Mac environments, and so they won't have the adapters or the cables you need to plug in so you can project your thing. So you need to always have the right kind of cables with you, and don't think that wherever you're going is going to have what you need, because they may not. The other one is the sound system, especially if you're going to show a video or you have a music or whatever. Bring your own sound system. I actually literally have a Beats pill. This is called a Beats pill if you're not familiar with that. And I just keep it in my backpack at all times. So if I walk into a classroom at the college, and I try to play a video and there's no sound, I can have a backup and use my own speaker. Okay. So I recommend that you do that. And if you don't do the cable and you don't do the speaker, you should at least at minimum do this one, is have a slideshow advancer. Okay. Slideshow advancers probably range from maybe like $20-ish to I think the one I have is pretty fancy. It's like $100. Okay. And a guy who doesn't do slideshows, why does he have $100 slide? I know. Good question. Okay. Or you can do this, because what a slideshow advancer does is it allows you as the teacher, and again, think of it in a K-12 environment. It gives you the freedom of being able to move around the classroom, talk about your slides, and advance your slide to the next slide from any location in the classroom. You don't have to be tied to the computer desk, right? Where you got to always click the mouse or click the keyboard to advance your slide. Or, you're talking and you are moving around the classroom, and now it's time to move to the next slide, and you got to run to the front of the classroom, click, and then move, so it helps you to really with your classroom management part of a slideshow in a K-12 environment. Okay. And then in an adult environment, nobody needs to see you running around the classroom, trying to change the slide from, one location to another. So a slideshow advancer is a really nice tool to have. If you don't want to put out any money, here's the other thing that you can do. And where's my phone? Is you'll see that in your, it doesn't matter what slide I'm on. In your slideshow, you might not have this second button here that's called present with a remote. And that's because I've added a handy little piece of software that you can actually control your slides from your phone. So I'm just going to click that one. And then what happens is on the little side panel here, there is this called remote for slides, little app that gets added into Google Slides. And I can go start remote. And then what it does, there's a little app called remote on my phone, and it gives me that 6-digit code. So I'm just going to type in 362, what was that again? Oh, that's 362-818. And then I just click connect. And then what it does, I don't know if you can't really see that, but it gives me an option of previous slide and next slide. And so here, I can just make this go away, as I can go next slide. Next slide. So you don't even have to have a fancy slideshow presenter. You can use your phone to advance your slides. And so that app is available on OS and on an Android phone. Okay, so I've got an iPhone and it's on there, and it's just a handy little freebie. It costs no money that you could use to help advance your slides. So I've seen departments and whiteboards. Yes, it is for sure. So, and that's what a smartboard was just a fancy whiteboard that people could write on. So why not project your slideshow onto an actual whiteboard and write on that, right? So for sure, absolutely, Felicity. So here, let me just go back to this or get to the slide that we're on right here, right? So again, you need to have the tools available in your toolbox or in your tool belt, so that when you need them, just again, I always use a carpenter as an example, that your tool's available, right? You think of a carpenter who's up on a roof. He's like, oh, I got to go get my hammer. Down the ladder, go get my hammer. Back up the ladder. Oh, I got to go get this tool. Nobody wants to do that. And that's sort of the same thing that happens in your classroom. When you don't have a slideshow advancer, you kind of look like that carpenter going up and down the ladder all the time for their tools. Okay. All right. Game time. Last one, don't forget to check your spelling. Okay, right? If you're going to have text on your slides, nobody wants to see your typos or your spelling errors. So make sure that you don't have any spelling errors. Okay, now this actually is a link to a Kahoot. So let's do a Kahoot. Loading. There we go. Classic mode. So whether you go to kahoot.it on your device, or if you got Kahoot, the app, go ahead and go there. We'll just, I think it's a 10-question Kahoot. Or I guess you could scan that QR code too, right? This is not for marks or anything. This is just more for fun. So this is a little bit of a review. All right. This is while you're all signing up. I was going to get rid of that. Is that it? Is that I'll only buy that? I'll give you another 10 seconds to join if you're joining. Otherwise, we're going to start. All right, here we go. We have 8 minutes. Let's do it. Thank you, Tyler. Presentation Woosah. This won't take 8 minutes. How many transitions should you use in a slideshow? There we go. None. Okay, none is the answer. Number 2, what is the 10-20-30 rule? Five seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. 10 slides, 20 minutes, 30-point font. I've got a few of you on the other ones. All right. So no more than 10 slides, no more than 20 minutes, and a minimum of a 30-point font if you're using text. All right. How do we do here? Oh. What is the 20/7 rule? Think of it as like our brain lesson plan idea. Give you lots of time on this one, right? And again, it's really, again, think of that chart for ages and how much time you should spend on that. This is a really long slide. Holy smokes. There we go. 20 minutes or 7 new items. Perfect. Okay. How many bullets maximum on a slide? Couldn't find an actual emoji of a bullet, so I use a little, I don't know, squirt gun or whatever it is. All right, everybody got that right. Oh, actually, no, one person. That's okay. Now you know. How many images on a slide? Think of that Martin Luther King picture that I showed you. Yes, one is preferred. You know, again, really honestly, it depends on the nature of your slideshow. I mean, you could have more than one, but one is really the preferred amount. All right. How many fonts should be used when you have 10 or more slides? I actually didn't really talk about this one. Well, we'll see what you got here. Three seconds, 2, 1. All right. Really, you should limit it to one font. And if I don't think I talked about that, but you should, it doesn't matter where it's titles or main text or whatever you're using. You should keep it down to one font with, you know, again, a nice readable, easy to see font. Okay. All right. Let's go here. Colors that go nicely together are called, watch your spelling. 8 seconds. 5, 3, 2, 1. Woohoo! And it is the green one. Complementary is spelled actually with an E, not an I. But that's okay. Now you know. All right. Complementary as when we're talking about colors that way. What is the best background color or image? And think about your poor printer. All right, what do we got? We got white and or a light color. You know what? Really, I could go with either. But again, even if you print a light, any color, you're still going to be end up using your ink or your toner right from your printer. So if you need to print it out, I would recommend that you just go with white backgrounds. Just it'll save you a lot of money in the long run. Okay, we're getting close to the end. What do we got here? Wow, we got almost Miss Maya. Did you say Maya or Mia? I can't ever remember. Whichever one. Nice work. Okay, last 2 questions. What are the 2 essential tools for your presentation toolbox? There's really actually 3 possible answers. Well, a remote mouse and a speaker. Nice. Yeah, just my good looks and charm. I like that one. All right. So, but you can only get away with good looks and charms for a certain amount of time before that doesn't work anymore either. So yes, a little remote clicker, whether it be, you know, like the one I showed you in the slideshow or the one on your phone or something like that. Ace. All right, last question. True or false? More text is better. There we go. We still got 17 seconds. There you go. False is the correct answer. All right, let's see what the whole gold medal winner is here. Bronze. Nice. Woohoo. Felicity, number 2, silver, and in the spotlight is, yay, all right, 10 out of 10. Nice work. Okay, gang, we didn't get everything that I wanted done on my my list, which is not. I just sort of muted a sec here. Hold on a sec. Let me just turn this off. Get rid of this. I don't want that noise in the background. Yep, we'll leave. There we go. Okay, so back just to our agenda for 1 second. I did not get everything done. We talked, we did the scavenger hunt. We didn't do any of that. So we'll do that next day. We did that and I talked about that. So these are the things that we'll do next day. We'll talk about flipped classrooms and flipped learning. In the meantime, in Google Classroom, don't be afraid to check out the HyperDoc and the readings for Friday's class. And like I do at every end of every class is if you are good to go and you're done with me, have a great day, go shovel your snow. And if you've got questions or comments or things you want to talk about, stick around and I'll be here to help you out. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording, but I'll stick around here, of course.